Honorable Speaker, with your permission, honorable members of the National Assembly, the Right Honorable former member of the National Assembly, social advocate, development practitioner, and seasoned politician, Honorable C.D. Jata. Of course, the Clerk of the National Assembly, distinguished invited guests, friends and colleagues from the civil society, teachers and students here present, officials of the University of the Gambia, and all other protocols duly and respectfully observed. It is our pleasure we invite you this morning to the second edition of the National Assembly Open Day. This day we initiated last year to ensure that Parliament comes we take the Parliament closer to the people. Today is meant for us to discuss what is the Parliament, how does it function, and what challenges does it face? What are the expectations of you, the stakeholders? And of course, we are delighted that we don't only have the members of the National Assembly by their leadership. Honorable Majority Leader of the House is in our midst. Can we give him a round of applause? Honorable Bile G. Tuka. The Honorable Minority Leader is also present with us this morning. Honorable Alaji S. Dabo. Can we give him a round of applause? Ladies and gentlemen, honorable members, without much ado, I now have the pleasure to invite the Clerk of the National Assembly to welcome us to the serene grounds of the National Assembly of the Gambia. Clerk, you're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Janya. Thank you, Mr. Diwali Janya, Director of Communication and ICT. Honorable Speaker of the National Assembly, honorable members of the National Assembly, WFG Council Representative, Honorable C.D. Jata, former National Assembly member, a doyen for that matter, Vice Chancellor, staff, and our intern from the University of the Gambia, representative from government and non-governmental organizations, civil society organizations, and all partners of the National Assembly present, teachers and students here in present, school from the Greater Banjul area here in present, distinguished invited guests, members of the press. Good morning to you all. Let me first welcome all honorable members of the National Assembly and distinguished guests to this very important occasion in our parliamentary calendar. It is our delight to have the company of the public and all key partners of the National Assembly to discuss unique history and role of the Parliament. As we stated during the launching of the event last year, the whole essence of this open day is to bring Parliament closer to the people. We can now add that the event is also bringing people to the Parliament. As the event unfolds, we encourage all of you here present to take advantage of the presentation, the discussion by the honorable members and staff, as well as all invited guests are prepared to engage and explore the challenges and success of the August Assembly with the public. Honorable members, distinguished invited guests, the Open Day was initiated in partnership with the Westminster Foundation for Democracy to celebrate the work and contribution of the legislature in the lives of the Gambian. That is our electorates. The event was initiated on the heels of robust reform of the Assembly service, instituted by this administration. A day like this demonstrates the commitment of the legislature to bring a more open and accessible institution to the public, and further denotes an improvement in service delivery and promotion of citizens' engagement. As we continue to provide effective service delivery, every success is as a result of the collaborative effort of my able staff, together with the cooperation of the honorable members and technical guidance from our partners. As parliamentary staff, we are guided by the principle of impartiality and priority on legislative business. We need to innovate and adapt to new changes as parliaments evolve to effectively deliver our core mandate of serving the National Assembly members. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, while the public engagement continues, I want to take this opportunity to commend our development partners and the disciple of the Friends of the Parliament for their continuous support to all legislative and oversight functions. Special thanks go to the University of the Gambia for the partnership on the student internship program. Today actually marks the official completion of a 6-month internship of the first batch of 100 UTG students at the National Assembly. It was great working with you, and I hope and believe that you have learned a lot from how Parliament operates. Here is another forum. If you have any questions or any clarification, you can ask. That's the essence of this interface. We want to definitely dialogue. The internship program is supported by the UNDP, UNFPA, as part of our youth empowerment vision, was meant to expose the young intellectuals on the functions of the National Assembly. To the civil society and all other partners, we appreciate your continuous engagement of the Parliament at all levels of national development. As a result, the Open Day is a family gathering for us to reflect and reprogram ourselves towards greater achievements in this legislature, the 6th legislature. Let me at this juncture express our profound gratitude and appreciation to all of you for answering to our calls to be part of this public scrutiny. On that note, I welcome you once again to the 2nd edition of the National Assembly Open Day. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Clerk, for that short and insightful welcome remarks, showing us that we don't only take the Parliament to the people, but we also bring the people to the Parliament. I now invite our partner, our brother, our friend. Since 2017, the Westminster Foundation for Democracy has supported institutional capacity strengthening of the National Assembly. They have supported both the Office of the Honorable Speaker and the Office of the Clerk to ensure that the National Assembly and the National Assembly Service serve the Gambian people as demanded by the Constitution. And ever since, our partnership has been growing stronger and bigger. Mr. Madi Jabate is the country director of the Westminster Foundation for Democracy.
Honorable Speaker of the National Assembly, the Honorable Clerk of the National Assembly, our dear comrade, Mr. Sylvia Jatta, Honorable Fatmata Jawara, nominated member, and indeed recognizing the majority leader as well as the minority leader and all honorable members present here, and above all the boys and girls from the various schools and stakeholders from the various public, private and civil society organizations and institutions. I would just have to say briefly my delight at having witnessed the second edition of the National Open Day, and I can agree more with the Honorable Clerk that the whole idea is to bring the National Assembly to the people, or closer to the people, and bring the people closer to the National Assembly. This fits in line with WFD's outcome in support of democracy, which is to make it inclusive, transparent, accountable political system. And knowing that the National Assembly or a parliament is central in democracy, it's a people's institution. And I'm sure particularly the boys and girls would pass the highway every day, and people going to work and see this magnificent building. And sometimes we have the feeling that this is those people who work here, but not understanding actually what happens here touches us in our lives. What happens in our classrooms, in our bedrooms, in our sitting rooms, in our football fields, in our markets, on the street, in our breakfast table, our lunch and dinner actually takes place here. And so this is our house where our lives have been decided. And so to bring people to this place and to make the National Assembly avail itself, open itself to the people that it serves, the people that put them here, can only serve to strengthen our democracy and encourage what is fundamental in democracy, which is citizen participation. And this is the focus, the objective of WFD, which is a body dedicated to strengthening democracy around the world, and essentially to promote democracy by encouraging inclusive, transparent, and accountable politics in which everyone, regardless of age, of sex, of disability, of origin, of whatever status, as long as you are a member of this society, you should have the space and the ability to participate in the affairs of the society, affairs that affect your life. So we are glad that we have been supporting this initiative, and immensely grateful that the National Assembly leadership, from the office of the Speaker to the office of the Clerk and all the members of staff, have opened up and providing immense cooperation to WFD to enable us to join other partners and efforts that have been undertaken to continue to strengthen democracy in the Gambia. So I look forward to the conversations that will come, but just to say I'm hugely delighted to be part of this historic moment unfolding in the Gambia, having to see the National Assembly opening up itself, not in its normal processes, but in a specific occasion like this, to bring members of the public to come and visit the premises and have the Speaker and the Clerk and honorable members like Syria and Fabra Jawara and the deputies, the majority and minority leaders and others to speak to our people about what happens, how the National Assembly works, and so on. So thank you very much for coming, and we cherish this partnership and we hope it to continue. Thank you.
Thank you to the people of the Gambia. Thank you very much, Mr. Jabate, once again. Is mandate assigned by the Constitution, and he is no other person than the Right Honorable Speaker of the National Assembly of the Gambia to declare the second edition of the National Assembly Open Day officially opened. Honorable Speaker, sir.
Honorable majority and minority leaders of the National Assembly, Honorable Fatoumata K. Jawara, one of the panelists, honorable members of the National Assembly, honorable representative of the Westminster Foundation for Democracy, Honorable Madi Jobate, our distinguished panelist, Honorable Sidia Diata, representative from the University of the Gambia, clerk and staff of the National Assembly Service, our distinguished speakers, distinguished invited guests, members of the press, ladies and gentlemen. Let me first and foremost welcome all of you to the precincts of the National Assembly, where the 6th Legislature is working tirelessly to be responsive and determined to make a difference in the lives of our people for the second edition of the National Assembly Open Day. The goal of this day is to bring the National Assembly closer to the people and vice versa, hence create the necessary connection and build strong relationships with partners and stakeholders. It is intended that the marking of this day will serve to raise favorable public perception and enhance public participation and involvement in the work of the legislature. With greater popular participation and involvement, the work and role of the Assembly and NAMS will be better understood and appreciated, hence overcome some of the challenges faced by the legislature, thereby facilitating their roles in representation, lawmaking, and oversight. This National Assembly Open Day presents an opportunity for the people of the Gambia to know more about their legislature, how it has evolved, the leaders who guided our country before, during, and after independence, to help them develop their own conceptions and interpretations of parliamentary democracy and its principles. Most importantly, they will also know how they can engage with their elected representatives. And meaningfully contribute to democratic processes. I am optimistic that the people will take advantage of the day to engage with National Assembly members and service staff to learn and appreciate the important place of the National Assembly in the Gambia and how it influences and impacts everybody. Distinguished invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, the second edition of the Open Day has come at a time that the National Assembly is progressively honoring the commitments it entered with the electorates. Thanks to the joint efforts of the Assembly, the President of the Republic and the government, several laws have been passed with the aim of creating new political, economic, and social administrative systems in accordance with the provisions of the Constitution. There has also been significant improvement in parliamentary oversight on the executive action, particularly on public finance and expenditure tracking, in addition to other important projects aimed at consolidating the rule of law. As we continue to build on the concept and expand its content, future events under this program will include community visits and public meetings, where members of the public will be given the opportunity to draw National Assembly members' attention to the challenges they experience with regards to service delivery and matters relating to the team. Suffice it to say, the overall concept of bringing Parliament to the people shows how the National Assembly is operating between the three spheres of government. In this way, Parliament is contributing to the building of participatory democracy by ensuring that citizens not only vote every 5 years for their representatives, but they are also able to participate in decisions that affect their lives. I therefore urge you all to take advantage of today and clear every perception you might have about the legislature. Together we can bridge the information gap and move together as a collective to build this country. Whilst I wish you all a successful Open Day, please allow me to conclude by commending our development partners, particularly the Westminster Abbey, the Westminster Foundation for Democracy and the United Nations Development Program for always supporting the efforts of the National Assembly to be a responsive, accountable, and a democratic legislature. I thank you all for your kind attention. Thank you.
Do we expect to learn and how we will be progressing with these activities moving forward? This brings us to the very close of the official opening of the second edition of the National Assembly Open Day. And except for Honorable CDA Jata and Honorable Fatoumata Jawara, we will now... Thank you very much once again to Honorable Speaker. It is now my singular honor to invite the Right Honorable Minority Leader, Honorable Alaji Dabo, to join us at the high table. But the different characteristic is that each of them brings to the table a different perspective. Where are we as an institution? Who are we as an institution? What can we do as an institution? So I will begin the discussions with the Right Honorable Minority Leader of the House, Honorable Alaji Dabo. Honorable.
For commending the Westminster Foundation, always been with the National Assembly. The initiative to have the open day, commending. So these people would better understand what National Assembly entails, and there they can contribute to put a better National Assembly. This has to begin at the point of electing the people who should be represented. You cannot elect your members when you don't know what National Assembly is, and through this we can be able to do that. Now the discussion point is understanding the business of the National Assembly. First of all, what a National Assembly is, if I may bring that to our local context, this is the People's Bantaba. Locally, we all know what a Bantaba is, where people meet and discuss issues affecting the lives and the livelihoods of the people. It has been provided by the Constitution that the people should have voices, and their voice should be who. Not everybody should be speaking for yourself on matters of the lives and livelihoods of the people. It is through representatives. And our Constitution provides that we have demarcated constituencies where we can be represented through those constituencies. Altogether in the Gambia is 53. You are obliged to elect your representatives through the constituencies. On top of that, the President also is empowered to nominate 5 representing different groups or different interest groups. To make it all together, 58 members who should be representing the populace in this People's Bantaba. Having known that, what are the functions and roles? One is, this is People's Bantaba, but not everybody can come to this Bantaba, and therefore you should be represented. Their key fundamental role is representation. They should be representing you so that whatever you are discussing, matters concerning you, at the Bantabas, at the schools, at your homes, can be voiced out here. They are your voices, and they should be representing you to speak for you. In doing so, also among their functions, legislating, and this can be done in 2 forms. the government can provide bills that will be laid before the assembly, and then they will go through. If necessary, they can make amendment, and then it will be adopted, and where it's adopted by the National Assembly, the President can assent to it, and then it becomes law. So that's why the National Assembly is regarded as the law-making arm of the government. Aside legislating, oversight is another function of the National Assembly. This oversight can be done collectively by the instrument of the National Assembly, that is through your committee, to go out and inspect the ongoing projects, to go out and visit institutions, to confirm by yourselves the works that are undergoing. The National Assembly approved budgets, and the budgets are spent on various projects. Now we need to know how far and how our monies are spent. It's not by way of receiving reports alone, but we want to see for ourselves those ongoing projects, how are they implemented. As an individual National Assembly member, you can also conduct your oversight at your respective constituencies. This development project that I talk about can be found in respective constituencies. There are institutions, it can be hospitals, it can be schools, it can be markets located in your respective constituencies. There are issues that are affecting your people, and they can be reported to directly to draw your attention. So you should be conducting those oversights, your respective constituencies, and then report to the National Assembly, or visit those public offices to address those situations, either visiting or by way of parliamentary questions. You can ask, so that the condition or the state of matters that are brought to your attention and that you have visited can be responded to by the minister. National Assembly as an institution, there are two main bodies that the National Assembly discharge its functions. That is through the plenary, where quarterly it can be, or sometimes through extraordinary, the entire members can meet and discuss on the issues that are tabled before them. This can be bills, motions, statements that are brought before them. They will be debated. We make our opinions, our views, yes, across political lines, even whereas we will be representing our respective political parties. When engaging ourselves in this kind of discussions, we put politics aside and concentrate on what is before us. Saliently, we'll all put our views, and then at the end, we'll either accept what is before us or reject. That is at the plenary level. And the other one is the committee stage. We have divided ourselves into committees. These can be standing committees or select committees. And each committee constitutes number of members headed by the chairperson. The chairperson is the head of the committees and presides over the business of the committee. Let me just go back at the plenary level. It's important to note that at that level, the speaker is the head of the institution, as earlier on alluded, is the presiding officer at the plenary. He is the judge, he is the referee. At the level of the committees also is the chairperson who presides over the business at the level of the committee. The committee, according to our National Assembly program, the committees program themselves have meetings in between the plenary sessions. That is, if we have quarterly for the plenary, that means the committee programs also we can have about 4 sessions for each of the committees. Timeline will be given to them for them to be meeting on reports or on complaints or petitions that are brought before the committee. Other than meetings, the committee also can go on oversight. As I said earlier on, we can do oversight individually or as a group to inspect ongoing projects or works, to visit institutions and take on them issues of concern to the people and to the National Assembly. Let me conclude to say that to do this work, the National Assembly has what is called the standing orders. It is the standing orders that provide what we call the guiding rules and regulations that we follow in order to execute our functions as parliamentarians. This is why many a time people will say anything that happens even a second, they will say the National Assembly has to do this. What is the National Assembly doing? Or the National Assembly is not doing. It is not within a twinkle of an eye that the National Assembly can act on anything that happens. We are guided by the standing orders, and as I said, we have time when the plenary is supposed to meet. We have time when the committee is supposed to meet. We have time when the committee is supposed to meet. When those times are not due, you cannot expect the National Assembly to be acting on issues immediately as they unfold. Let me say, my name is Alhaji Azdaw. My attention has been drawn to as the minority leader of the National Assembly. When we talk about the minority leader, is the one that heads the minority group in the National Assembly. What constitutes the minority group are the opposition side of the National Assembly. My colleague will also talk about his side. So we have 2 sides in the National Assembly. The majority side, that's from the government side, and then the minority side from the opposition camp. Our difference in camps does not make us to oversight these functions that I earlier on talked about. Collectively, we do it together regardless of which sides we come from. On that note, I thank you.
Thank you very much, the Right Honorable Minority Leader of the National Assembly. He says the National Assembly has 2 camps. The minority camp, which I bring in the majority. Honorable Majority, this convergence today is a fine blend of stakeholders. The National Youth Parliament is here. The civil society is here. Schools are here. Government officials, local government officials, development partners are here. And most important, the young people of this country are here. And they too have a message. I will therefore invite our special guest speaker of the occasion. We need a language, we need a culture to progress. But let us see how the majority leader will contextualize this in the work of the National Assembly. Honorable Majority.
Director of Communication, the National Assembly. I want to stand on existing protocols. All protocols respectfully observed. Of course, I am compelled to recognize the former chairperson of Foreign Affairs Committee, Right Honorable Sidi Ajata, as a panelist to the discussion. Of course, next to him, my honorable minority leader, Honorable Ayesda, representing Brikama North constituency. On my far right, I want to recognize the presence of an Iron Lady, Honorable Fatimata Jawara, member of National Assembly in the Gambian 6th Legislature. Permit me to recognize the presence of the country director of Westminster Foundation for Democracy and Good Governance, and thank him so much for creating this avenue for us to have a tete-a-tete with electorates from different sectors, ranging from schools, university, politicians alike, the youth parliaments, and a host of many others. The job given to me has been really been eased by the submission of the minority leader. Of course, there may be semblance repetition of what he has said, because ideally it's the same topic. So you expect a replica, or sort of like a replication of what has been presented before you earlier on. However, I want to take you memory lane. When you see Parliament, what comes to your mind, and how do you perceive Parliament, and why do we have Parliament? The reason for its existence as well is very important. I want to take you down to memory lane, that this wall used to live, or we had experienced a situation called state of nature. State of nature is an era whereby man was free but everywhere in chain. It is survival of the fittest. It is the strongest conquer the weak. It is lawlessness. It's called for anarchy. So generations were really going through that, and there is a compromise, a thought that this is not a decent way of life. We need to sit down and compromise and come as people, think differently, but of course, agree to a certain point. Then they enter into what we call social contracts. That is to submit your powers, resources to people to be in charge of your affairs. And that's why the beginning of government starts, to give some people to be in charge of helm of leadership, to make sure your lives, your property, your fundamental values are protected. And that is why a state exists. Having said that, then people also think that, of course, we need to have our say on how we shall be governed. And that is premised on the preamble of the Constitution. I will refer you to go and look at the 1997 Constitution. The preamble page did elaborately spell out that we, the people of Gambia, have had our say on how we should be governed. In the sense that it's a pillar for democracy, it's a pillar for inclusiveness in decision making. And that is why Section 87 of the 1997 Constitution did provide for the establishment of the National Assembly, for us to have a National Assembly that will be in charge of conducting sort of an oversight of government. And this parliament also was also born on the premise of there is no taxation without representation. That government cannot come and tax our people without having people there to stand for us, to make sure that they monitor, to make sure they follow each and every penny how it's spent. And that is why representation comes in terms of as far as parliament is concerned. So for us to have members of parliament, it is born out of a social contract that we are going to give some people the priority or the legitimacy to govern us. But of course, in the other side is a give and take. We'll also have a branch of government, or a branch of, an arm of government, whereby our people will be there for us as watchdog to make sure that value for money is attained. It's not only by giving resources to government to spend, but of course, there has to be a referee, there has to be a watchdog, there has to be a watchman over the expenditures of government. And that brings us to the establishment of government. And any democracy you go, any country, parliament represents a very important role in democracy. Parliament represents democracy itself. If there is no parliament in any country, there's no democracy. You are aware, contemporary students are aware that in Bissau, there is no parliament. The parliament has been dissolved. It means democracy is really challenged, or democracy is not in existence in that country. So parliament play a pivotal role in terms of democracy in a country. As he alluded, the right honourable minority leader, we have thousands of parliaments. You might be confronted in your classrooms, you might be confronted in your banter bus, you might be confronted in a symposium. What is the role of parliament? Of course, we have 3 to 4 fundamental roles to play. First is legislation. Why legislation? Because we believe that there need to be a rule of the game. There need to be policies, regulation, acts that will make sure we live in peace and harmony, and also guide our existence as human beings, for us to respect each other, for us to also appreciate that you being powerful does not give you the reserve right to oppress the weak. So we need to create that avenue. That is why laws are made, so that we can be guided in our dealings with each other. And the other thing is representation. Representation in the sense that because we've given the government to collect tax on behalf of our people, to pay taxes. And that tax has to come to Parliament. It's called the food basket, that is the budget. The Parliament is charged with responsibility to make sure that we allocate resources based on sectors of the economy into line ministries. Portfolio ministries are designed. Each ministry you've seen is not for pleasure. Each ministry is established to address a certain menace in the society, be it in the health sector, be it agri sector, be it environment, be it education, be it whatever. You see, every ministry does not really come from the blues. Every ministry has been scrutinized, has been examined, and fit for purpose to address a particular issue, to address a particular issue in society. And Parliament is charged with responsibility to allocate the resources to these sectors of the society. That is why the issue of representation comes. We make sure we represent you here and share those resources adequately. And issue of course, oversight comes in there. And representation only aims at only giving budget. We also need to put your cry, your concerns, because not everybody can fit in these hollow chambers. We have only 58 chairs there. And it means that we have 58 constituents in this country. It means that there should be 58 members representing about 2 million population. So therefore, all of you cannot come here to deliberate, to air out your concerns. That is where you have members of Parliament to come and interact with the public, interact with you to know what we are going through. And if government is coming with a policy, we make sure that the policy is really having that correlation. It really has the nexus addressing certain issues in society. That is why we come here and advocate during adjournment debates. We air out our concern, we air out that the issue of electricity, issue of water, issue of poor road network, issue of networks, issue of a high tariff rate of megabytes, issue of anything. So we are here to represent, to make sure that at least, I don't know, if we look back, we contribute to a change in your life. Because in governance, if you don't really reflect any positive or meaningful changes in people you represent, you're not representing them at all. So, other one is having given the resources, we have to make sure we go out to make sure that we follow those resources that we have a contract with you. This money has been approved or appropriated for health sector to make sure that there is scanner, there is CT scanner, there is operation machine, there is medicine, first aid, there is primary healthcare things in place. There is a select committee in Parliament. Every sector ministry has a select committee in Parliament. These are working tools of Parliament. Parliament has working tools, and those working tools are the select committees that conduct direct oversight, on the sector ministries in concern. That is why in our standing orders, Parliament has a power equal to High Court judge. That is, it can summon a witness to come and to answer to concerns of governments. And if you negate, there are consequences of that. They can hold you in contempt. It shows you how powerful Parliament is. That shows you what Parliament can do. And to tell you also, we have those tools. So oversight functions, we normally conduct it with the help of our working tools. And working tools in Parliament are the committees. So basically, you should know as students growing up that there are committee systems in Parliament, that committees are the working tools of Parliament. And those committees are always charged with responsibility, either by plenary, to refer a bill to them and have a thorough discussion, engage the public, have a stakeholder conference, stakeholder dialogue on the issues. So make sure that reflections of people affecting a particular legislations are given the due or are given the necessary attention they deserve to be heard. So basically, these are businesses in Parliament. To cut it short, I don't want to replicate or try to repeat what has been earlier alluded. The program is really lump sum, and I will draw the curtain here that Parliament is an interesting setup, and the committees were for. So these are three core members of Parliament: representation, oversight, and of course, making legislation as well. That is making law in the country. And finally, of course, internal arrangement of Parliament. Probably I wouldn't bore you that to make it so technical. These are our internal arrangements, powers vis-a-vis committees here and there. But initially, laws are made in two folds. One, it can come from government, and two, it can come from the members themselves, who feel that there is certain things that I can do it through a private member's bill. You have the reserve rights that you can come up with a private member bill, and you make sure you pass through a process. The bills are passed in stages. Stages one is the first reading, you have the second reading, and you have the third reading. The first reading is whereby the minister will come up with the bill to hand it over to the clerk. It has been deemed to be read the first time. Second reading is whereby you now present the bill, the objects, the merits and principles of the bill. That is, why do we need this bill? You must convince members of Parliament beyond reasonable doubt that this bill is fit for purpose. Then the minister responsible will come up and try to give us, justify that the objects and reason of the bill is there towards addressing so. For instance, for example, if a minister of water resources happen to come up tomorrow with a bill relating to water regulatory, a bill, it's short. It's the prayers are it's foreseen to address the issue of proliferation of digging of borehole without paying cognizance of the environmental impact and also health, because health issue, anything you consume has a direct impact on your health. So we also want to regulate water sector, not because of getting votes of people. You go and drill a borehole at a sanitary area or a latrine or next to it, not far from a toilet. The bill will give you the reason why we do that and also the health benefits of the bill, and those are the objects and reason of the bill. The third reading, is that second reading, members of Parliament will now give their impression. They form an opinion on the bill, either in support or proffer constructive critics and give recommendations that will be captured along the way. And the third reading is whereby we go down to the Committee of Supply to look at the bill clause by clause, and that we have agreed in this clause, this is how it will be. Next clause, we agree this part, this is how it will be. So once we are done at the Committee of Supply, it means that Parliament has resolved to pass this thing into a law. Then it's now reported back to the plenary that the bill, having gone through the Committee of the whole House, is being deemed to read the third term and pass. Then that is the end stage of the bill. Then it will be communicated and signed, and the president will assent. When the president assents, then it comes to law. If the president doesn't assent, he can make comments and bring back. But of course, those also has some caveats, regulations. There are certain number of days. If you refuse to sign, of course, automatically it falls into law. So thank you so much for indulgence. I hope I've done justice to the topic, but I'm reading from experience off head. Thank you so much, Madam Secretary.
The first reading, the second reading, the third reading. And I can see the government students are taking note. We will have the chance to interrogate them further, but for now we have to sift to a very important issue. Oftentimes we hear that behind every successful man, there is a woman. I also believe that behind every successful woman, there is a man. I'm not sure whether we will agree to that. But women are breaking barriers. They have refused, Gambian women have refused to be bystanders in the political frame. They have chosen to be on the table, not on the menu. And one of those women breaking barriers in the legislature is no other than Honorable Fatou.
Leadership of the National Assembly, my colleagues, Honorable National Assembly members, distinguished invited guests, members of the press, good afternoon to you all. I am delighted to join you today on the second edition of the National Assembly Open Day to share on behalf of my colleagues, the female National Assembly members, our experience as women in politics and in particular as legislators. Let me first say that this Open Day of the National Assembly will give us the opportunity to take the parliament for the people, and as the clerks stated this morning, also bring the people to the National Assembly shows how the government of the Gambia under the leadership of the National Assembly places the significance of participatory democracy. This is obvious because the opportunity for all citizens to participate in the management of public affairs is at the very heart of democracy and good governance. Having said that, it is important to note that the achievement of democracy as started by the Interparliamentary Union presupposes a genuine partnership between men and women in the conduct of the affairs of society in which they work in equality and complementarity, drawing mutual enrichment from their differences. It is in conviction of this reality that I enter politics as a young woman, aware that the right of the Gambian people cannot be negotiated. I entered the rank of political compatriot at a time many fears to even have their voice heard. I did so because I believe in democracy. I believe in democracy. I believe that Gambians deserve a society where they will live in freedom and dignity and have access to quality social service and development amenities. Besides, I believe that women as mothers are given the charges of the home and care of children. Women are therefore by nature as well as by training and occupation more accustomed than men to concentrate their minds on the home and domestic side of things. But this difference between men and women, instead of being a reason against their disfranchisement, seems to be a strongest possible reason in favor of it. We want to see the home and the domestic side of things to count for more in politics and in the administration of public affairs than they do at present. In politics as a woman, it has not been a roller coaster. I lack the necessary resources and networks as my fellow counterparts. But with perseverance and determination, I weathered the storm and conquered the barriers. In the process, I faced the full brunt of political brutality. I was arrested and subjected to inhuman and degrading treatment. But this strengthened my conviction, and having experienced firsthand the excesses of power, I became even more convinced that change is possible and the democracy that the Gambian people yearn for will become a reality sooner or later. In 2017 parliamentary, I was among only 3 female candidates who contested and won the parliamentary election. The other 2 being Honorable Fatou Njai and Honorable Kadi Kamara. In the last parliamentary election, although I lost the contest, the President, realizing that the development agenda of this country cannot be moved forward without the active and inclusive participation of women, particularly in the legislature, nominated me as one of the 2 female nominated members to the National Assembly to bring back to the House my experience and knowledge. and skills gathered in the previous legislature. Since 2017 to date, I continue to work closely with women of the Gambia to promote the agenda of women empowerment, support social network for women to acquire the necessary tools to participate in politics and decision making. And above all, I am still standing firm to the democratic agenda engendered by the leadership of our country. In my constituency challenging, I continue to work, support girls and vulnerable women, have access to critical service and improve the general well-being of the people. Despite our decimal number in the House, we prove beyond all reasonable doubt that women's presence in the Parliament is a reality that impacts on the social, political, economic fabric of our country. Yet, women assess this important legislature structure, learning how to work within them and the extent of which they impact on and through them remain serious challenges. It is critical for the sake of ensuring fully functional democratic institutions, the total respect for the human right of all, that these challenges be targeted and overcome. A concerted effort is needed to target all stages of women political participation from the moment they decided they want to run for public office, through each step till they reach that designated office, and thereafter to ensure that as members of Parliament, they have the means and needed resources to impact positively and constructively on the advancement of their nation. Furthermore, it is notorious fact that even though women form the majority of the population in most of our countries, they continue to be marginally represented at all levels of decision making. Women also continue to be the worst inflicted by poverty and high literacy level. It is also unfortunate that women experience several other forms of violence, including battery, sexual abuse and exploitation, and rape. The defilement, to mention but a few. This state of affairs is not acceptable, and legislatures should not lay back and adopt the indifferent attitude. We must continue to speak against this injustice. This meeting must too add its voice to this fight. With this few remarks, I thank you all.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Fatoumata Jawara. I think she has thrown up a challenge that women should not be left only in the home. They should be taking part in our decision-making process. But the debate will come later in the day. For now, I have been signaled by those from Jawarakunda and Jabatekunda and Jatakunda that there seems to be some empty bags around and some need to stretch up. And therefore we have asked those in the canteen to get us something to lean on. And before the Right Honorable Senior Jata presents the guest lecture. Team from the cafeteria, we want something to lean on, please. And in the meantime, we can stretch our legs for 10 minutes. Thank you. Now we will go straight to the main theme of the discussion this afternoon. And we have no better person to shoulder this responsibility than a person who has served over 40 years. And of course, he is serving. All of this he combines into political activism. A former member of the National Assembly, served in the Standing Orders Committee, served in the Public Affairs Committee, served in the Finance and Public Accounts Committee, and the list goes on and on and on. He is no other person than the Right Honorable Sidia Jata. Honorable, what is the role of the National Assembly in a democratic society?
Thank you. And Honorable Majority, Honorable Minority Leaders, Honorable Members of the National Assembly, and Mr. Jubate, Minister Foundation representative, honorable members of the Youth Parliament, honorable fellow students, all other protocols sincerely observed. When they were speaking, I was wondering where and when and how I was going to start my intervention. They call it a lecture. It is not a lecture, it's academic. We are not here dealing with academic matters. We are dealing with practical matters affecting our lives daily. So it is not a lecture, it is a chat with you. And that's why we are going to intervene consequently. But I think I'm going to start with my very dear lady poet. I was impressed by what she said. And now I think I'm not lonely. Before I think I was lonely and struggling for something. But young people are taking it up. Section 105 of our Constitution stipulates that our languages can be used in the National Assembly, but on condition that there is an act in that regard. And since 1997, that act has not taken place. It has not been made. But the fundamental question, the lady posed the question, but I'm going to pose it in a more serious way. We are talking about a parliament, and the majority leader stated that Section F7 established the National Assembly, which is, in my view, parliament is the iconic symbol of democracy and democratic practices. And I want you to underline that word. Parliament is the iconic symbol of democracy and democratic practices. And parliament is the expression of the authority and power of the people. Now we are in that parliament. But the people that the people chose to represent them in that parliament, when they speak, they don't understand what they are speaking. Are we really true representative of the people? I ask you, are we really representative of the people? You send me to represent you somewhere. When I go there, what I speak, you don't understand. How sure are you that I'm representing you? That is not a problem specific to the Gambia, it is an African problem. It means that when we became independent, the first and foremost thing that we should have addressed is the issue of language. Some say there are too many languages, that is true, but it is an enrichment. Many languages is an enrichment in your country, not a cause, not a problem. You make it a problem because you have learned a language which gives you opportunity and privilege to have job facilities. But when you learn your language, to whatever level, you don't have those facilities, you don't have those opportunities. So consequently, people don't have any regard, they don't have any inspiration, no motivation to learn their own languages. So that is a huge deficit in our democratic dispensation. Secondly, like he said, Section 100 of the Constitution stipulates that Parliament is the legislative institution. You make laws, but you also make laws which are no more relevant, they don't serve the purpose of the interest of the people. Now, Section 18 of our Constitution stipulates that 10 years after having come into force the Constitution, we should subject to consideration the issue of death penalty. It has never happened. So death penalty is still hanging in our laws. That is a huge deficit. Section 92 of the Constitution stipulates that you have power to recall your representatives when they are found wanting. But there has to be an act to that effect. In 1997, I posed the issue. And some of my colleagues at the time said, do you want us to take a knife and cut our own throats? So that act also has not been made, which means that the people don't have any power to recall the very people they choose to represent them, even where they find them wanting. That is also a huge democratic huge deficit in our democratic dispensation. I'm supposed to talk about the role of Parliament in upholding democracy and good governance. But all that I have said so far are bad democratic practices, and therefore they are not good for good governance. Where people have no say over matters, in a republic where they are the generators of the wealth of that country, then there is a big problem with democracy. But the law is very clear. The majority and minority leaders have said it. I don't want to go over them again. Your representatives have the function of oversight in this country. Whatever money is spent in this country, government money, it is never spent without their approval. No money is collected from the people in this country without the approval of the Parliament. In other words, before you are taxed, that decision is approved here in this Parliament. And before that which is taken from you is spent, the decision is also taken in this Parliament. Its approval is given to it in this Parliament. But in addition to Parliament being an oversight institution, there is another oversight institution which helps Parliament to do its job properly. What is that institution? The Auditor General's Department. Yes, budgets are approved here, they are allocated to different sectors, and they spend it in the course of a year, but that institution comes and audits everything that they have expended. And that report is submitted to Parliament here for consideration. That gives possibility to Parliament to know exactly what has happened. And in doing that, they are exercising their oversight function. So you see how important it is, the work of Parliament. But the unfortunate thing is, sometimes government does things without bringing them to Parliament for consideration, which are very important. That's what policy. Since Parliament has authority to exercise oversight over implementation of policy, then Parliament must have an idea as to what that policy is, what those policies are. And that is why they should be brought here for review and consideration, so that they know what type of policies are going to be implemented, where, and how much money is going to be spent on their implementation. But generally, ministers don't bring policies here for consideration. There was one person who was very good at it. That was the first vice president of this republic after the elections in 1996. She made it her duty to bring every policy document under her purview for consideration. That I can vouch myself to that. But apart from her, I cannot remember any minister who has brought any policy here for consideration. And that is very important. But what we must understand is that both leaders of the National Assembly indicated it. I'm going to emphasize it. Much depends on this parliament. If you go to any country, however that country is, if it is good, look at the parliament. If it is bad, look at the parliamentary institution in that country. Everything depends on however bad a country may be. If you look at the parliament in that situation, it is a bad parliament. And however good a country is, look at the parliament, it is the origin of that. So that is why we should give utmost importance to parliament and who goes to parliament. There is a law which is no longer applied when selecting parliamentary candidates, but it was when I started in 1986, 87. That is in the Act. If you want to become a candidate in parliamentary election, you should be subjected to what they call linguistic test. That doesn't happen anymore. Why? Because it is not your language that you are going to speak here. It is a foreign language that you are going. They want to be sure that you can read and write adequately in that language. Because here, they bring technical documents which are written in English. If your English is at a certain level, you cannot deal with them. But you are an elected member of parliament. You owe your people to deal with those documents adequately in order to have a worthwhile input into whatever is going to happen. So that is also a huge deficit in our current democratic dispensation. I think it is time we give thought to who we elect to represent us in this institution. It is the most important institution. It is the institution which can destroy this country. It is also the institution that can make this country, that can prevent this country from going down the drain. But you must have the tools to do that. And parliament, the development is a process. It will always be going upwards, not upwards, then downwards. If that happens, that is going to determine the nature of the development of your country. Parliament's development should always be upward. It should always be improving upwards, not going downwards. This interface, I call it interface, is very important. It's pity that the clerk is not around. You are here. I must say that we must thank him profoundly for having initiated this excellent idea. It is excellent because, in my view, there is nothing wrong with the clerk choosing one of you, the public, to come and sit here and do what I would call evaluation of the performance of the parliament. In fact, what is here now should be a stock-taking of the parliament. Your role here is to stock-take the performance of the parliament. That is it's not related to increase the visibility of parliament, but for the parliament to know the reaction of the public to what they are doing here. And they cannot know that unless we are given the opportunity to come and give your views about the performance of parliament. So I would suggest that next time, one of the panelists or some of the panelists of this function should be the public themselves, for you to hear what they think of you, what you are doing, how do they appreciate it, what input do they have to make you improve upon what you are going to do here, or what you are doing here. That is fundamental. But you must also take interest in the institution, but you don't. Because none of you come here to attend the sittings of the National Assembly. How would you assess your members? How would you assess and evaluate your representatives if you don't know how they are performing? That is why it is free and is open to anybody who wants to come and listen to the representatives when they are in session in Parliament, particularly you young people. I think from now on you should take interest, particularly those who are members of the Youth Parliament. You should take interest when you have the time, you are not engaged, you should attend every sitting of this Parliament. Not only the session, but even committee meetings, they are open to the public, unless of course there is something that makes it unnecessary for the public to be there. Because there are certain matters that are discussed in camera. But there are many, many issues which are dealt with openly. So you can meet, you can attend. And you see how your MPs are performing, how they are trying to defend the interests, how they are trying to bring about improvement in anything that is going to improve your living conditions in the country. This is very important. So I would suggest that you take that up seriously too, because otherwise, our democratic dispensation will be very weak. Youth Parliament has a lot to learn from this Parliament, but you can only learn from them to come and see them at work, at all times. I'm not going to speak long because I'm sure there are many of you who have questions, there are many of you who want to intervene, and I'm more interested in what you are going to say than what I'm saying. And I would be disappointed if, at the end of it, you don't do what I'm expecting you to do. Because it is you who are the leaders of today and the leaders of tomorrow. And the future depends on what you are doing today. Thank you very much.
Fatima Alassane to deliver a point.
I'm called Fatima Al-Hassan. Okay. Hence, we are all politicians today. I know there is one thing common, which is we are all Africans. This is a cultural piece, so I want you people to learn from it. And it reads. Maam seet si na ma si ay gént wax ma lii ci kàllaamay Kocci Barba kuy dem ba xamatoo fi nga jëm dellul fi nga jógee fi nga yaroo fiñ la xamee kon nañu dellu fu jàmm doonee suñu naataange parce que ku bañ li nga doon dafa fekk nga gën si ñaaw te ku bàyyi sa aada boo dem fekk fa borom. But wait a minute, what a world do we live in? An African speaking English like British learning French, Spanish and Portuguese but unable to send a mere information in our special languages? No, wait. An African using chemicals on their skin, spoiling the melanin, forgetting that he who knows the importance of color shall cover it with green leaves. But if it's true that man can't live without water, then we Africans can't live without our cultures. But in the olden days, it was cultures for cultures and traditions for traditions, not tribes fighting against tribes. In the olden days, when it used to be a Mandinka cultural festival, the first thing you would see is the Kankurang holding its cutlasses, singing and dancing the Jambadong. When it used to be a Wolof cultural festival, you would see the Zimba dancing the sound of the suburb. When it used to be a Fulani cultural festival, well, you would see the Nyamakalas dancing the sound of the Nyanyegis. And of course, when it used to be a Jola cultural festival, you would see the Kumpus dance the Bugarabu. Of course, when it used to be a Serer cultural festival, you would see how gatherings would be filled with strong men and women, healthy men and women waiting to know who the best wrestler would be. Indeed, these were memorable days. That is something which is not done. And we Africans shouldn't be known for that. Dear Africans, this is a message. Let us take that which belongs to us and leave Sambas for Samba. Thank you.
Honorable Speaker, with your permission, honorable members of the National Assembly, the Right Honorable former member of the National Assembly, social advocate, development practitioner, and seasoned politician, Honorable C.D. Jata. Of course, the Clerk of the National Assembly, distinguished invited guests, friends and colleagues from the civil society, teachers and students here present, officials of the University of the Gambia, and all other protocols duly and respectfully observed. It is our pleasure we invite you this morning to the second edition of the National Assembly Open Day. This day we initiated last year to ensure that Parliament we take the Parliament closer to the people. Today is meant for us to discuss what is the Parliament, how does it function, and what challenges does it face? What are the expectations of you, the stakeholders? And of course, we are delighted that we don't only have the members of the National Assembly